Hello. So I am back to streaming. I'm gonna be doing some level design for October month. I've noticed some people doing a challenge called Blocktober, which is a challenge where you do a level design project every day from October. I've seen some people working on the same level throughout the entire month, and then I've seen some people do a different level for each day. Which is what I'm going to be attempting to do. I know I'm starting a little bit late because it is the 10th. So I'm not starting the first day, but to be fair, I've been pretty busy doing some game development. Just released a game called Depths and Dragons on itch, which was done for Ludum Dare, which is a 72-hour game jam, which was a lot of fun, but a lot of stress. So now that that's over, I am going to be working on some more level design. I do have other projects that I'm working on in the meantime, but because all of those projects lately have just been programming, I've been a little bit drained. So I thought maybe going back to my roots, doing some level design, considering that I have not done that for a while. Um, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I put together a spinner to determine my prompt for the month. Let me just switch windows. Huh. Okay, sorry. Having a little bit trouble because my Windows capture is not updating. Actually, it should be this link. There it is. Oh, never mind. I'll figure it out. Give me a second. Okay, finally. Okay, it's working. So this is my spinner for Blocktober 2025. From what I've looked into it, I don't think there's an official list with some level design concepts. So I've kind of put together my own list. I'm kind of hoping that I get a very simple prompt that's easier to design because I only have about an hour and 30 minutes because I do have a meeting later for some bug testing for a game. So let me spin the wheel and see what we get. I'm a little bit tempted to do this thing, which I usually do, where it's like I spin three times and then choose the option that I want to do the most. Um, just because sometimes I'm indecisive and it's easier for me to be limited to three choices. But let's see what I get for my first spin if I decide to do that. Man, I got greenhouse, which was okay. It was the one I was hoping not to get, but honestly, I was like putting together a mood board earlier for a greenhouse design. This was actually the first one on my list and the first one I was considering doing. So it's funny that I ended up getting this one. Um, I find this a little bit overwhelming now that I'm thinking about it. Um, let's see. I can do it. Okay. Let's remove that from the list. And let's switch back to Unity. Alright. Let's go into scene view rather than game view. You know what? I'm thinking about actually implementing a character controller while I do this. Just so I can have a character model in the game that I can use for scaling purposes. And I do have an asset. Um, let's see if I can find it. It's like a very low poly character with some basic like movement code on it. So it'll be pretty useful for getting like a getting sorry, I'm like tripping over my words. But getting some basic like human motion in the game so I can actually walk around my level, see how the feeling is. Um, but let's see, I'm having some trouble finding it. Is this one it? This is not the one I'm looking for, but that may have to do. Um, my asset list is unfortunately too long, so I'm having some trouble finding it. Ideally, I should have actually imported this before starting the stream, but I didn't consider it until now. I have imported a few things into the project just to like help with my organization. So I use these two different assets that are able to like kind of give like color labels and like icons to things in the hierarchy and my folders, which I like utilizing just to make it easier to manage everything in my project, because sometimes your hierarchy gets very cluttered, and especially if you're importing assets into the folders, it can get a little bit overwhelming to figure out which is which asset. Now, for Blocktober, I'm not going to be actually doing any importing of assets. I may go back later to these levels and create some assets or find some on the asset store and actually import them into the project. But because this is just like a blockout, a gray box, I don't want to actually do any of the visuals just because that's going to take a lot of time. And since I'm considering I'm good doing this like challenge every day, I do not have that much time to spare. Now, there's a chance that this stream will turn into a two-part stream just to make it easier for me to manage because I do have my meeting later, but sorry, I'm still looking for the asset. I may just go back to the previous one I found. I am not streaming that because I don't really want to be showing like my asset store. But let me see if I can find it. Typically, what I do post all the credits to the assets that I use on my game projects. So a lot of the time, like if you go onto my itch page, if I use some sort of asset that was not made by me or somebody I know, I do have the credits like there. So if you ever want to see what assets I use, you'll find them there. But I think I just have to settle on the other character controller I have, which I lost the location of. Give me just one more second. There it is. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is, let's see, create. I immediately went down to, what did I go down to? I think I went down to UI. Because all the game projects I've been working on have been 2D, and a lot of them have been mostly like using the UI system. Or a big majority of it, I did a lot of the UI for, so I'm a little bit like going there by instinct. But let's see the 3D objects. I think I'm gonna create not terrain because I'm doing this as an inside space. Let's do a plane. Just had a greenhouse floor. Check it out in the scene. Let's see, my first person. Is that my asset? Let's implement it. Is mesh render not on? Yeah. Is this set at, what location is this set at? See, I don't know why lately when I've been creating assets, it doesn't like set it immediately to 0. There's probably a reason for it. I just have not looked into that. See, now you can see it with the camera view. I'm gonna actually, can I get a camera view? That's the camera setup. Actually, let me get to the asset and raise it a little bit. I don't think I've used this one in a while, so I don't remember what it looks like. But if I can't figure out the camera, I might just set up the... Actually, let me see if I play it in the scene. If... Yeah, the camera view works. Oh, okay. It does not track the player object. You know what? That'll be an issue for a later time. I don't got time for this. Let's go to the greenhouse floor. Let's scale it a little bit. Oh. I think that's a pretty decent size. I should be worrying more about scaling in reality, but because I am doing just a quick blockout, I'm not going to be worried about like too much of the size. If anything, I'll scale it down. I do want to make this greenhouse a bit more rectangular. Oh, maybe I kind of want it a little bit wider. Yeah, like that. Okay. No, this is the moment where I realize I have not actually been in a greenhouse in like forever. So I'm trying to remember what one looks like. Um, See, when I think of greenhouse, what comes to mind is like the greenhouses that I've like played in The Sims. Except I haven't made, I've never like, surprisingly, as much as I like level design and doing blockouts and gray boxes, I don't actually like building in The Sims. I find it such a pain. I like the interior design aspect of it, which I do think plays a lot into level design. Anyways, let's do a wall. Start that off as a cube. I don't know if cube is the best asset. Could I use another plane for that? Maybe. Actually, it's gonna... Oops. Yeah, that looks decent enough. Actually, let me stretch it a little bit. Actually, no. That's good. Obviously, I'm going to scale it up a little bit. Okay, now that I'm looking at the player object, I'm like, this is huge. This is such bad scaling. Okay. The wall does not need to be that high, and neither does the greenhouse floor. which I now realize I made that as a parent object or a child object of it. But you know what? That actually works for me. See, that's a lot more of a realistic scaling. Let's scale it up a tiny bit. There's a chance I will be increasing the size of the wall because I think what I want to do is I think I want to do like a 2-floor situation. Yeah. I think what I want to do with the layout is have it be a first floor, have some like stairs going up to like a second floor, and having almost like a balcony walkway that kind of goes around, and then having another part of like an actual flooring a little bit above that doesn't take the entirety of the second floor. It only takes up like a section of it. And I believe that section is going to be where like one of the doorways is going to be, because thinking about like a greenhouse design, you don't want to hide the like roof of it, because you do want to use that as the light source to help the plants grow. So that flooring for the second floor does need to be hidden onto probably the doorway area. Let's see. Wall 1. I know, very descriptive. Sorry if I sound a little bit off. I think I'm developing a bit of a cold, which is not fun. It is making speaking a little bit hard because I do want to cough like every few minutes. I'm trying to decide if the greenhouse should have 2 entrances. I think I just want to go for 1 entrance. For this, I'm just going to duplicate wall 2 instead of creating a whole new object, because I do want the walls to be about the same width. I do think I made them a little bit too thick for glass. But you know what? Like, if I was going to envision this, I would definitely envision the like glass and then the like beams running around it for the support. Actually, now that I think about it, I have been in a greenhouse like a few years ago. I think that's Garfield Park Conservatory in Chicago. It's a very beautiful greenhouse. It's very large. And actually, I'm like kind of envisioning the design of it a little bit. I am definitely making this one a bit different, more of on a smaller scale. Like, I'm kind of envisioning like this greenhouse to not be like a necessarily a destination one, but more of a like greenhouse that you would maybe like somebody with a lot of money has like on their land. Okay, that actually fits perfectly, and that worries me a little bit because I wanted this to be. Oh wait, did I scale it? I probably scaled it. I just did that so instinctively that I completely forgot that I did that actually. Sorry, I'm just opening a bottle of water. I need to drink something. It's a little bit different doing a gray box in Unity than it is to do it in like Maya or Blender, which I do actually have a little bit of experience in, but Unity is just simpler for me to use. And because like I'm not too like picky about how like the detailing will look and everything like that, I'm just going for a basic layout of like what I would envision this to look like. Oh, wrong key. Now with this one, I'm going to do something a little bit different because I do want to create like a doorway. So I do want to separate this. That is a huge doorway. Okay, let me not delete the player object because I need that. I was supposed to scale up, not scale down. Oopsies. Yeah, that's a decent doorway size. Now, if I think about it, an actual like collider for a space like this would be a lot larger. It wouldn't be like this tiny. Now, these naming conventions for a doorway should probably be a bit better, but that's what I'm just gonna settle with. Or just naming conventions for the walls to make it easier to keep track of. I'm just checking how this looks. This moment is when I'm missing using like Maya or Blender, because what I would ideally do is create like a triangular shape to kind of create like an arch doorway. But I will do my best to do something like that with here. Probably like scaling it down. Can I see that sticking out? I can. I don't want to be able to see that. Now, I'm not making like the actual door. What I'm doing is I am doing like the walls around the door, and I want to do an arch way. See, let me see. You know what? Never mind. know. Yeah, no, I can't see that. I don't know why I was worrying about that. I actually like that shape for the doorway. That wasn't what I was going for, but I actually like the style. Actually, sorry. I'll be right back in a second. Okay, I am back. Sorry, I needed to go grab some cough drops. Okay, now that we've got the inside space, I want to do the outside. I don't know how to spell that, considering I was trying to spell wall. Sorry, I'm just spending some time thinking about how I want to do this layout. Actually, I'm lazy, so I'm just going to create a copy of this. Now this is going to be the second floor area. Let's make it a little bit wider. Something like this will be used kind of, maybe as a storage space. Or even a space for, like, I guess more exotic plants, perhaps. I think I'm envisioning more of a storage place. Let us... floor... Now, with creating this level, I don't think I have any specific gameplay mechanics in mind. I guess the only thing that I'm kind of envisioning for this is potentially it being like some sort of farming simulator game, but in a greenhouse. Now, I did have like a concept for a potion brewing game, which I titled Day at the Apothecary. But with that game, I was kind of considering doing an option for like a day-night cycle, having certain plants that it's best to harvest at night. And I think that's probably what I would like envision with this game, is that you have plants that you can harvest by day and plants that you can harvest by night. Kind of giving it more like a fantasy aspect to it, I would consider. Okay, let's move our... What level is this at? Like 11. Let's move this one up. Oh. Ooh, I see what I did there. Oopsies. Ugh, I like messed up the... I just realized that I completely messed up the scale of that. Or not the scale, the level of it. Oh, did I accidentally scale this player object as well? Oopsies. I believe I did. Let's make him more cylinder shaped. Oops. Okay, that seems like a decent size for a floor, a second floor. No, I'd make this walkway a tiny bit thinner. Okay, and I think the way I see this is having... Oops. I think I rotated on the wrong axis. Yeah, why am I doing that? Is this not straight? Okay. No, I'm just imagining it being like 50, 60, 180. There we go. I just wanted to see how I would think about like angled version. See, this seems a lot thicker than that one, but I believe that's because that one is a little bit into the wall. Let's make it a bit thinner. That looks to be about the same size. Let me just check. Scale 3.48. Oh wait, I'm dumb. I can't even check the scale like that because they are slightly in the wall. Visually it looks about the same, but I'd consider this having like a walkway there as well. Now, for safety's sake, this does need to have a balcony. Right at 90, there we go. Make this a lot thinner, considering it's gonna be like fencing. Need to scale it down on this side because that has to be two separate components because of this. Get a bit smaller because I don't want this to be like a gate. I want this to be, or not a gate. It's like I don't want this to be like a wall. I want this to be a fence that's smaller than the size of the player, but still like, you know, something the player won't like fall over. Hopefully. Make this a little bit smaller. Now, one thing that's challenging about doing a level this way is typically what I usually do when designing a level. I do a bit of a mood board first, so I collect bunch of images, sometimes even videos of like spaces like that, to get a better understanding of the layout of that area. And then I typically draw a sketch, sometimes a few sketches, editing and doing different drafts of the layout, just to see what would work best for like movements and gameplay sake. But because I have to do this I don't have as much time to do this. Plus, the drawing software I have is on my iPad. I'm not entirely sure how to connect that to be able to make it visible to you guys. I do have to skip that phase of it. That looks about good. There, I wanted to have a little space there to differentiate between the ground and the fencing, because I believe like a lot of times like you have like that kind of gap between the fence and the edge of something. It's not typically like directly on the edge. I've noticed a lot of builds. No, I haven't done any like 3D level design in a while, so I will say my abilities I feel a little bit rusty. The closest I've done to level design in a bit is building stuff in Minecraft, which I will say like gives you a pretty good like concept of like building spaces. Um, I honestly think like more portfolios, in my opinion, should have like level concepts for like that are built in like The Sims or they're built in Minecraft, because like a lot of times like if you're building like a shooter level, you can include your level design concept in there. Like I've built levels for Quake before, and I was able to use that in like the my like portfolio site, because I feel like it's more acceptable to use. But I feel like that same thing does not apply to actually uh, anything else that isn't like a shooter game. I could be wrong. I am not somebody who recruits for games, so my perspective may be a little bit biased. So don't take me for my word. It's not my place to really say exactly about that, but I do feel like, you know, with like games like The Sims or even Minecraft, like even though the focus necessarily isn't building, it is a major feature of the game still. And I believe that you do get a lot of practice and a lot of skill knowledge from being able to create stuff in those games. I know like playing The Sims greatly helped with my like understanding of like interior spaces and designing those. Now I'm not a fan of building in The Sims personally, but I do like redecorating like houses in The Sims. And I think that really has helped me get a concept of like even like furniture placement, of like clutter placement, just like whatever like looks good. And I kind of realized that while playing, not playing, working on my levels for one of my projects there at the apothecary. Um, Sorry, I just realized that needed to be moved up a little bit. Okay, cool. We've got our walkways. Progress. Now to do the scary part, the interior. Even though I was just talking about interior design. But what I was saying with my project day at the apothecary, I've noticed that when I started working on the project, and to be fair, I think working with assets sometimes is a lot easier than doing like a block out for like interior aspects, I would argue. More specifically, if you're like filling spaces. Now, if you're adding like shelving units and like furniture like placements, that I think is very doable in a gray box. Now, I don't think like placing like cup placements is super like useful unless you're doing them as important locations in the map, like as if there's some sort of like narrative element and you want to figure out where the placement of that is. I do think that that is very useful in a gray box. But if it's just visual clutter that's not interactable, I don't think it needs to be included. One, especially because gray boxes are more like, fast concept ideas, so the space, and then you can have your artists work on the arts, and then the programmers work on programming in the area so they can test, and then it's all about actually putting everything together. Okay, I do need to move this one down again. Oops. Now I'm trying to think about where to put like placements of stuff. Oh, I keep like accidentally going out of the area. Okay. I'm gonna make this easier on myself. There we go. Now I'm thinking about adding like shelving units to this part, but I do believe that like in most greenhouses, you typically don't want to put like the shelving by the front part because all of this is glass, and the shelving kind of take away from like the visual appeal of like the outside aspect of it, in my opinion. Um, but I have an idea. Doing more of like a table or a bench kind of from here to curving to this way, so it's like an L shaped. I think I like the idea of that. Having that as like kind of like a workspace area. Um Maybe adding like a shelf that like goes up here like on this corner of the table. That'll look interesting. I wouldn't add a chair to this because this isn't necessarily like a desk. It's more like, you know, like, I mean, it is a desk, but it's not like a desk that you sit at and work at a computer doing paperwork. More so like you're doing carpentry and stuff like that. Or not even carpentry, because that wouldn't make entirely sense for a greenhouse, but repotting plants into flower pots. That's kind of what I would consider. So we got the second floor, we got the first floor. Let me just move the player controller up. Empty. Oh, this is such a pain. What am I gonna title this? I'm just gonna title it based on the item. Workbench area. See, I'm going back to the UI area instead of the 3D spaces because of my previous projects. Okay, let's make this thinner. I'd consider about that as decently sized. Let me see based on the player object we have. See, if this was like a player, you'd want to have it like this high. But that's not a good size. I think the player object is this, at least this style, is more useful in figuring out like the height of walls and doorways. And even just moving around like a space. But I do think I want to do this like a little bit higher. Like I would imagine like a desk to be about this area. I'm actually going to deactivate this player object for now. Alright, let's stretch it out. Make it a little bit wider. I think I want to make this longer. Yeah. I'm just gonna add some legs to it so it's more identifiable as a table. Oh, that is outside of space. Oopsies. Because something is off here for me. Like, this needs some sort of support in the center aspect. Because that's going to be a lot of weight in that one area. That, if in reality, if there was, like, a table there, it would totally break. I kind of want to spin this around a little bit so it's not like... Yeah, I like the way that looks. Actually, let's move it to the side a little bit. Yeah. Ooh, actually, no. Let's move it a little bit more. A bit less. Yeah, that works. That works. I'm just gonna reuse this piece and flip it to 180. That's not the right axis. Is it Z? No. It's X. Whoopsies. Nope, I don't know what I'm doing clearly. Okay. That's the x-axis, yeah. Oh. I'm dumb. That should be at 90. Let's thin this out a little bit because this one's going to be a shelf. Make it not as long, not that wide. Should it be a curved shelf? Or not a curved one, but like a one that goes like an L-shaped. That's what I was going for. No, not L-shaped. Sorry for being quiet. I'm just kind of a little bit focused. There we go. We got a shelf there. Actually, the shelf should have been a separate cube. That's not good that the gray box is there. Or not the gray box, the empty game object. I don't want to deal with that right now. How do I feel about that? Actually, I like the L-shaped. Let me just adjust these so they're not sticking out as much. Yeah, that looks better. Cool. I would have loved to put like a tool board here, but because these are glass walls, that wouldn't work. Now, what if I created a flower pot? Oh. Oopsies, I don't need another empty here. 3D object. No, I want a cylinder actually. Or, not a cylinder. Capsule. No, never mind. Is it a cylinder that I want? Why does the cylinder and capsule look like so similar? Oh, okay. It's just the capsule collider that I was seeing that it made it look similar. That's my bad. Actually, let's actually move the whole gray box. Not the gray box, the object. Not just the empty, or not just the physical object. Let's do it about this large. Do another cylinder at the top of it. Scale it down by a little bit. Yeah, and then make it wider. Yeah, that's a flower pot. Oh. Those are flower pots stacked into the corner. Let's create an empty flower pot group. That way I can reuse this in different areas. No, I want to do the planters next. Oh, I did not mean to have 2 there. Well, I did initially, because for testing something to make these wider. What is it if I fit like 2 side by side? Do I want to make them wider? I think so. Just a little bit. There we go. Now to let me do the walls. No. Walls of it will be skinnier. I made this higher because I am like envisioning like these like aren't empty, like they're full of dirt. So somehow trying to like get the placement right on these like planters makes me think of when I took a woodworking class and we had to make a box, and I struggled a lot with my box. I did end up making I wanted to say decent box. I mean, it was box like and it had a lid. Did it look good? Nah. It looked horrible. But it, you know what? The lid worked. It closed. Things worked. Uh, you know what? It was my fault too because I overcomplicated the design. I think I chose like the most complicated pattern for creating the hinges, which is why the box ended up looking horrible because everyone else did like the easy one and it looked good, and I'm like, yeah, why did I like do the hard one? I'm always stubborn. I always want to do the hard projects. But anyways, trying to align these made me think of that. Awesome. We got a planter. Anyways, I'm not gonna worry about the point there. I wanted to, and then I started trying to look at it, and I was like, you know what? This seems like a problem for a different day. I'm starting to get a little bit tired because it's not like super late for me or anything like that, but speaking for a little bit kind of exhausts me. And I do have a meeting in a few minutes, so there's a chance I'm just gonna try to wrap this level up, not make it super detailed, because I think I would probably add like a lot more objects to the area. Actually, let's make these planters a bit thinner. Or not as long, actually. Because I want there to be like space between the back wall, so you can like walk through. go a little bit too wide. There we go. That's a good size. This will be shelves. Shelf, because it's one shelf, but I will put next to a bunch of other shelves. There we go. And I actually want to take the second floor and move it down a little bit. This is going to be like a bag of dirt. Alright, well, I wouldn't consider this greenhouse entirely done, mostly because there's this entire blank wall here, and I definitely think that I should fill it with something. I don't want to fill it with the same items, though. So, but considering it is nearing the time that I have to get going, to make it to my meeting, I think this is where the stream is going to end. So thank you for anyone who's stopped by or was watching this, rewatching this later. I had fun. It was definitely a challenge. I am looking forward to tomorrow's prompt and hoping for definitely a few choices are ones I am hoping for. But for now, this is what I got. Thanks for watching.